Brought to you by WKTV, I'm Wayne Thomas. Welcome to another Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters Paranormal Podcast.
My name is Brandon Jose of Kent County Paranormal. You can find my team's page on Facebook at facebook.com/Kent County Paranormal. And if you need to get a hold of us, you can do it through our Facebook page on Messenger, or you can email me at kentcountyparanormal@hotmail.com. Thank you for joining our forum in search of paranormal possibilities.
As always, please keep an open mind about things that you might not easily believe as we explore the mysterious. Thanks again to everyone that made it to the studio tonight. Once again, Gene Gregory, our producer. Thanks to WKTV Journal and WKTV Facebook, where you can find the Whole Picture podcast. Tonight, our special guest is KIPS, Kent and Ionia Paranormal Society. And we'll start our discussion in just a minute. As always, we like to review the previous podcast. Now, on the previous podcast, we had cryptozoologist Chatan Noir. She was fascinating, informative, far out. She's an amazing person, and this is her latest book. It's Mothman and Other Flying Creatures of the Midwest. And we talked about this and a couple other books that she wrote we had in here that we've digested thoroughly. It was very educational. As a matter of fact, she has engagement set up for this summer. She's going to be teaching classes at some of the junior colleges. She has engagement set up in some of the libraries. We talked about the Silver Bridge, West Virginia, the Mothman there.
Yep.
Yeah. We didn't get into the Michigan Mothman too much, but there is a Michigan Mothman with sightings around Chicago. So if you're interested in flying cryptids, look into her books, and we hope to have her back on the show sometime soon. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Spirits of the Dead by Edgar Allan Poe. I wanted to choose a poem that was appropriate for a paranormal investigating team.
Fantastic poem.
Yeah, thanks. So let's meet you guys before we go on so we can start the conversation.
I'm Ken Decker. Together with my team, we founded in May. We all take co-leadership. We all have our own specialties that we like to work on. We really came out of bad experiences to form one group. We just kind of clicked from there and moved on.
Nice. Yeah. You have other members that couldn't make it tonight. How many people do you have on the team?
We have 4 permanent team members. Then we have also backup team members that can come in a bigger investigation.
Okay. Tasha.
Yes.
Your special abilities? Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm Tasha, and I've always had a connection, and I am psychic, and I've seen spirits and everything for as far back as I can remember. So that's kind of always been a easy connection for me because that's my life. So
I see that, yeah. And then Brandon, I know you guys said you have at least one person that's empathic.
Yes.
And then Brandon, he's never really said, yeah, I'm empath, but he's been on an occasion where he's had some feelings where he actually takes on the pain.
Yes, that's pretty common for an empath. And like every psychic is an empath, but not every empath is psychic. So they have they go together, but they're a little different.
That's quotable statement right there.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I'll be making notes on this afterwards.
You see why I brought her in?
I see that, right. That's why I like hanging out with Brandon. He knows the paranormal. His team, ghost hunters, sure, but then they're going other avenues now.
Yeah, that's what we looked. We pretty much have stuck with the paranormal stuff, but we would like to just more a matter of trying to find the avenue to get into to do other stuff. But I'm probably looking in like this summer, probably with Grasp going up doing some like Bigfoot training and stuff like that. But
Grasp, I don't know if you're familiar with that team.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. See, they've been a lot of help, and you said you were willing to work with people, and
Yes.
that's what they're
Yes.
promoting, is this para-unity, and then that's part of this show is what we're promoting also, and teams like yourself, teams that can use this platform to bring themselves, public.
Yes.
Okay.
I have worked with a few other teams. Some of it's just been for fun. We're looking into a investigation this Saturday that is a closed investigation that a couple family members they believe they have a grandmother on location in this building, and we're pulling in a lot of investigators because it is a large building, and she asked me to join in on the investigation because she knows my work, and we're hoping to find out if there's any concrete evidence of whether this family member is there.
Right. And you worked with Darren Dykehouse.
Yes.
Also.
Yes.
Of Lakeshore Paranormal.
Yes.
And he's a great guy. Do you also know Jamie Ray?
No, the name does not ring a bell right off.
Yeah, she works with Lakeshore.
Okay.
She's a
I know
psychic.
Yes. I know who you're speaking of now. I have not met her, but I do remember seeing her in one of the videos.
Did you guys do cases together?
Darren came out with Candy on a investigation we had in a cemetery.
Okay.
As far as I know, nobody had investigated the cemeteries. So we got permission from a city to go ahead and do the investigations in the cemeteries. And we had some pretty interesting interactions while we were in there. There was a Civil War veteran that was speaking to one of our members, Marlene, that was interacting with her. I had come upon that, and it was very interesting. And while Candy was in another section and she was having her dowsing rods out, having interaction with a young lady that was approximately 13 years old. And it was a very interesting night. And Darren was off. He was doing his video with the different interactions through spirit boxes, and he had a very productive night.
Yeah, of course, Darren is YouTube. He does those. Yes. And then you mentioned some of the equipment already. I'm hoping that our viewers and listeners know something about the paranormal so they can follow us. But, when you talk about spirit box or you start using EMFs or
yes.
like that, they may not follow that. You said you make some of your own equipment.
Yes, I do. You can buy circuit boards, the theremin boards on the internet. They are basically the same thing that the REM pods are made out of. You solder all the pieces in, like your resistors, transistors, LED lights. I put a switch with a 9-volt battery and a permanent LED light so that when I turn the power on, you can see the REM pod, otherwise it's black. You're in the dark, and I've had it kicked before I put that light on there, and it's not a hockey puck. So I put a light on there so it can be seen. I've also bought a few cameras. Sometimes I go bust on it, but I take the cameras apart and I remove the filters.
What does that do?
That turns it into an infrared spectrum camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the filter blocks out that light, so that way, when you take it out, that's what most of them they could even buy off the ghost sites. That's what they did, is they just removed the filter for it and then sell it at a very marked up price.
Yes. I've been able to find these point and shoot cameras. I had a friend give me one. You can find them in some of the stores for $5-10. Pull them apart and you pull the filter out. Some of them only take about 10 minutes to do. It's very simple.
Oh, nice. I think our listeners, our viewers are going to enjoy knowing that they can make their own without spending big bucks on it.
The theremin boards are only about $15, $10 in that range, depending on what site you go on to buy them. If you have any kind of soldering skills and the right soldering iron to do it with, very simple to put together. And you can put them into just about any kind of container that can fit a roughly 5-inch circuit board in with the lights and wiring and a battery. You could even put them in a stuffed animal for a trigger object. You put the lights wherever you want to. If you want to put the lights, you run wires down to the feet and the hands. Put them where its heart is. Put them where its cheeks are. Make it look like it's blushing. Show the entity that might be in the room what will happen if you touch this. Its heart will light up or its cheeks will get rosy. It might be enticing to a child that might be in that room.
Yeah, I like that. You know, a REM pod, for everybody out there, it works off proximity. So if you get close to it, or if it's something that gives off a charge, I'm guessing you're measuring electrical magnetic field.
Yes.
With your REM pod. So,
yes.
And that the theory is that a ghost or a spirit gives off that kind of energy. You had something on your Facebook, I believe, that had a whole chart of different things that give off EMF.
Yes, and that's many of them. They're for the newer type of electronics. But even if you go into some of the older houses that may have the old doorbell systems, you've got things like transformers downstairs in the basement or in the attic or in a wall someplace. Those transformers are to change the voltage to the 12 volts for the doorbell to function. It's just simple, basic deduction of what you're looking at. I've seen people trying to figure out why they're getting EMF through a wall. You walk around the corner and it says right on the door, furnace room.
Right.
And you can hear it going. You got to play a detective.
Yeah.
So the big thing with that too, like one of our cases we had, it was like a Wi-Fi box.
Yeah.
They had like a breaker panel was in their bedroom, and they had a Wi-Fi just on the other side of the wall. So that's where like we got to kind of move that Wi-Fi away, because like you're essentially creating a fear cage in your room because you're having all this EMF just being pumped in there.
Yeah.
Between those, having those two right there.
And that can, it depends on the people too, is how it affects them. It can give them headaches. It can give them nausea.
Right. Yeah, there's a disease that comes with that, and it affects children even more severely. So if your kids are experiencing something, that's what we go in, we get basic measurements for EMFs in a location. And sometimes we tell the client, you've got a problem here. You have too much of a charge. Or if you're living underneath electrical wires, that could be a source. Actually, water flowing underground can create EMFs that you can pick up on a device. So that's what you go in, you do your basic measurements, and then you debunk all that stuff ahead of time. And then when you're setting your device somewhere where you're not supposed to be getting that stuff and it lights up, you think you have something. I like it when I get
And even there,
things.
you still got to debunk it, because even if you put it somewhere where you weren't getting it the first time, something might have kicked on that wasn't on during your baseline sweep. So you go, okay, well, let's see if we can track this. I know, like one of the things we did in one of our cases, we set them up on the ground. The ground, we put like an EM pump down.
Yeah.
And we ran the EM pump, and we could watch it as it goes, so we could tell there was like wiring that we weren't originally picking up, but you could tell because of where it's following. So you can tell where the energy is kind of traveling through, so you can figure out what its path is.
Yeah, a good example.
Yeah.
Here at the Kent County Allegan Museum, every time the heat came on, it didn't matter where you were in that building, your EMF detector went off.
Yeah.
Anywhere, yeah.
Some of them, it's amazing how much electromagnetic they give off when they come on, and I think a lot of that has to do with the age of the unit. We were getting, it seems to me, and this was much earlier this year, but it seemed to me we were getting 50s reading off of that furnace in that building. But it was quite high. It just took a little bit to figure out, because it wasn't moving. It was very steady in that area. And you walk around the corner and it stays steady, and you keep going along the wall, and you see and you can hear the mechanics of it whirring through the door. And at that point, I knew exactly where we were picking it up at.
Yeah, and some old buildings too, the wiring, it's like that electricity bleeds right through their insulation or whatever and through their walls. Yeah, you're doing your due diligence to debunk that stuff.
I've actually found in one of the buildings we were in, it's a building that was originally constructed in 1886. We were down in the basement, and I was actually getting some reading on my REM pod from the walls, the concrete walls themselves. I had to get the antenna about 1 inch away, and it would set it off. And I found it kind of interesting, but again, you've got a river right outside the building. You've got constant dampness coming in around. To me, it was a little surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising.
But scientifically, I guess it would be very possible, because you have conditions there.
Right. And the spirits, if there is high energy, can use that energy to manifest. I want to give you an example of this. Town Square Media, it's a radio station, downtown Grand Rapids. Everywhere there, our meters would go off. It's like you could not use an EMF detector because it was high energy everywhere. And actually, it helped because Brandon's got a little story he could tell you about that place.
Yeah, we were in one of the radio, like one of the booths. And the reason why we got it called in there, because in this particular one, they had gotten an EVP on there, and you're in a soundproof room. It was like a male voice, and it was only a female DJ in there. So she's like, I want to know what this is, because there's nothing that's going to make. And she was having one of her switchboard or something was getting turned off, and she wasn't the one turning it off. So her station was going dead air.
Yeah.
So anyways, we were in the one booth, and I'm looking out down the hallway. All of a sudden, I see this guy come walking down the hallway and turn into a room. So I'm like, would anybody else come up here in the middle of the night?
3 a.m.
You know,
Really?
like besides just us. And she's like, no, there's nobody else that would be up here. So like we'll go out there, search. There's nobody else out there other than the people that we already had accounted for. And I'm just sitting there, like I described what he looked like, and they're like, oh yeah, well like that. We know who that is. It's like he used to be like a manager here. Like he passed away a few years ago of a heart attack, and like the room you seen him turn into used to be his office.
Do you believe that was residual, or do you believe
I think
he was
that
actually...
was probably. It's hard really to say because like we didn't really get any interaction.
Okay.
So I'd probably lean more towards residual on that, but it's like you never really know just because they might be there and not communicate. It's
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, great question, Ken, because that's the first thing we try to determine for a client. Is it residual, or are you dealing with an intelligent spirit?
See, my first real sighting was actually in the home I'm in now. I was always on the fence of whether something like this existed, because I grew up in a house that only had one family in it before. We didn't have anything going on around the property as far as I know historically, such as Native American grounds or anything like that. So I never really witnessed anything like this. I was laying in bed, and my oldest daughter at the time was about 1.5 years old, and for probably a month she was waking up 1 to 3 nights a week crying. And then I asked her, what is wrong? She says, ghost. Okay. Well, not long after, I hear the door in the bedroom go click click, because it's an old house. It has the old knobs, and they're not quiet. And I could see a figure pass through the room in front of the light coming in through the bedroom window. And I thought, well, it's her mom going in to check in on her, because the outline of the figure kind of matched her mom. And I don't hear anything. Nobody comes back out of the room. So I get up out of bed and I look in the room. Only my daughter's in that room. My theory is this is the woman that lived there before. She sensed something wasn't right, or her motherly instinct was so powerful that she wanted to stay around because she saw a young child in this house and wanted to go in and watch it over her. She never hurt my daughter. My daughter and I had a discussion about it. She was only a year and a half old, but she seemed to have some reasoning in her mind that, well, maybe the spirit isn't here to hurt me. Maybe Daddy's right and she is watching over me. She didn't wake up again with a problem like that after that.
I'm wondering, these disturbances, when she was waking up, was it on a cycle? Did it seem to happen the same time of the day or night?
You know, I didn't really ever keep track of that, because she has 3 older half-sisters, and I at first thought it was one of the older sisters teasing her, telling her things that, you know, there's somebody going to get you. But I never really kept track of that. It could have been happening every night. Just
she didn't wake
nights,
up?
Yeah, just nights that she was restless, laying in sleep, or laying in the crib, not sleeping yet, but just relaxing. She may have seen this figure come in through the door, stand next to the crib, and got scared. I don't know the whole foundation. I just, because the activity wasn't to the point where anybody was ever getting hurt.
Right.
Nobody was ever scared. I had dining room chairs moved across the room. I've had my son's toys lined up 2 by 2 around a curve while he's in bed sleeping. But nobody ever got hurt, so I was never concerned.
I tell people ghosts are more afraid of you than you are of them. I've been preaching that for forever, because that's what I was taught at 5 years old. My grandfather was a ghost hunter. So, I mean, I was. You have to approach them like you would a wild animal. You know, you have to get on their good side. And
I could see that, yes.
Tasha, I'm wondering, with your special abilities, how that works into the team. Do they use you in a special way? Do they send you in first, or?
Oh, I actually just am getting started with them. Everything just kind of came together, and now we've been getting, like, we just got a message, so we're starting to have more weird things happen, and I don't know if that has to do with me or not, but I think that it'll be good for me to go to get a sense of things. I pick up not even necessarily on spirits as well, but the energy of, like, the land. I was able, you know, I kept seeing something actually when I had moved into my one apartment, and I kept seeing this Native American man, and it felt like so stressed out and everything. And so I started asking, like, okay, what happened here? Is something going on? And I ended up finding out that there was a large Native American area over there, because it was right by the river. And there was this battle there where they said they wanted to make a treaty, but it was really to come in. They had all of the chiefs go to this meeting and meet, and then they went and, like, murdered all of the people.
Oh, nice.
And so there was this big thing, and I was like, I've lived in this area my whole life. I didn't even know this happened. And so I'm sending my mom all of these links. I'm like, Mom, look at this. Did you know any of this? And she's like, no, that's so crazy. And then after that, he went on, and then I didn't have anything else happen after that. So sometimes it's just picking up on things from the land, because everything has energy. And if there's been a big event or some type of trauma, it gets stuck there. It needs to have healing as well.
Right. Traumatic events for sure can create residual energy. Routine events also that pattern can be imprinted in the surrounding things. You talked about cement walls, limestone, slate, all those materials seem to store energy. Can you get an item and then read off an item if there's some kind of a psychic attachment to it? Or?
Yes, sometimes. It kind of depends on the item, especially if there's a lot of energy in the item. Or I've had friends or something be like, hey, I found this at my grandma's house. And I hold on to it. I'm like, hey, I saw this, I think someone wore it in a wedding. Go through some old photographs. Hey, it was my great-grandma's, and she wore it in her wedding. And then it was passed on, but it was lost, and no one knew where it went. And we found it when, packing up the house.
Do your abilities run in the family?
Yes. My grandmother actually was very spiritual, and she was kind of labeled the crazy lady of the family. And so everyone was like, okay, just the crazy grandma. And I didn't get to know her as well growing up, but she kept telling my mom when she was pregnant for me, she's like, you're going to have a little girl, and she's going to have green eyes and curly hair, and she's going to, she's going to be weird, and she's going to have abilities. She's going to help people. And my mom was like, okay.
That wasn't you, was it?
I think so. I think it was.
Oh, no.
So I got that from her. My mom has some empathetic abilities as well. She just doesn't use them as much.
Crazy is a key word in the paranormal. People so often, I might be crazy, but as they're telling you their stories. So just so you know out there, you're not crazy.
Yes, exactly.
This stuff happens.
It happens.
In our world, you're normal.
Yes, exactly.
I can't help but notice the things you're wearing around your neck, so I'm guessing there's some explanation.
Crystals. This one is a fluorite crystal.
Move that out a little bit so the camera can pick that up.
It's a fluorite crystal. And then this one is an organite pendant. And then it has the amethyst and rose quartz and clear quartz.
Oh, I didn't know they could get one with 3 different things on it.
Yes, organite is like a blend of different ones. Oh, they're really good for EMF reduction, helping balance out your chakras and your energy. They're good protectors as well for your own energy field to kind of keep things out.
Chakras and the Reiki that keeps coming up. We're going to get somebody in here, an expert. That's probably going to be next year, 2020. I wear a Moldavite now around my neck.
Yeah.
For the camera, but I don't know if you can even pick up on this because it's pretty small. But this stuff's not cheap, so I just got a little chunk of it. And then Brandon has Moldavite now also.
Yeah.
And everybody on your team has got a chunk of that.
Yeah.
It's because of our connection with Australia here. Koala Bob Jr. is our Australian connection, and our friend, psychic medium, Steve, was here, and he was talking crystals. And we've had a couple other guests on here talking crystals.
And Moldavite specifically, that kept coming up. So I'm like, well, maybe I'm supposed to get it if I keep hearing Moldavite over and over again.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah.
I have that happen many times. I'm like, okay, it just keeps popping up, so I'm clearly supposed to have this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Moldavite's supposed to be for your psychic abilities to bring them out, and it can be very strong. This can bring your abilities out to a point where you have to put this away for a while. Citrine's another one that's entered into my life quite a few times lately, so I'm looking into that. Now you come on the show with a couple more.
Yes.
I don't know what to do now. I'm gonna have
a
whole
collection. That's all. You're just gonna have a collection.
This is over.
Yeah.
I started with just one, and then they just multiply, but that's okay. They're actually really good for wording your own home. I put them in the corners of my home. They're great for keeping things out and balancing energy in your home. There's many different purposes, so they're great to have around.
Now what about the Himalayan salt rock?
I do. I have those as well. I actually have a lamp of that.
Right, and they seem to be very popular. Brandon, did you get one of those?
No, I don't have one of those. I'm still new when it comes to all that. The only thing I got is Moldavite. That's it. But mine, I've always been skeptical of it, so it's kind of more starting to just kind of learn about it kind of a thing. So.
Yeah, me too. I've been pretty reserved about that, but we've been running into it so much. And
I started there at one point too, so it just keeps coming up, and then you're like, okay, I'm more interested in this. I'm going to check it out.
You found what works for you?
Yep. Yeah. I have all kinds of crystals, and I keep stuff in my bag. I have them everywhere.
We're getting spooky, a little bit spooky now. I'm wondering, you guys, Ouija board. I'm going to bring that up real quick here.
I personally won't mess with one. I've heard too many things that I don't know if they're true or not. So personally, I'm not even going to touch it because I don't want to open Pandora's box if that's true.
Okay. I think you have to be very careful. I do not use them. I did when I was younger, and I had a lot of issues. I had spirit attachments. I had to have one of my friends come over, and we had to bind the board and send it down the river because there was stuff that just kept coming. So I would, especially if someone is very energy sensitive, it's not a good idea, I would say. If you are not approaching it in the right way, you're open yourself up to everything. If you're not setting an intention, which I think is very important with anything that you're reaching to spirit, intention, not just welcoming whoever, because that can set a whole thing going backwards.
I keep hearing that intention. It's
Yes.
all about your intention. Now, what did you say? You put your Ouija board in the river?
Yes, I had, spirits that were trying to be attached to me, but also I had someone that was claiming to be a mentor and a friend, and then she started psychically attacking me and was using the board to go through it. So I had to bind the board. We had to do a closing ceremony, wrap it, bind it with salt, and send it down the river.
Literally.
Yes. Water is a good cleanser in any energy form. So that was the best way to do it.
Well, I appreciate your opinions on the Ouija board. On my handout sheet that I give people, introduces us, the team, what our mission statement is and stuff, I have in bold print, never use Ouija board.
Yeah, I won't touch one.
Just because you don't know. You don't know what you're
Exactly.
dealing with, what you're inviting in.
Yeah.
Well, and when
Right.
people use it as a game and they think they're playing, it's a game. Well, you can be used as a game and not in a fun way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that, but I know there are teams that are out there and that use Ouija boards. There's other ways of communicating or knowing if the spirits are there, like your REM pod, EMF detectors. I'm guessing you use a digital recorder and you listen back for ghost voices on that recorder.
Yes, I actually use a tablet with recording application on it. I have picked up things in the past on them. The first one that was really striking to me was with another group. We were in a museum. The leader had a SLS camera out. He was picking up a form of what looked to be a child standing on a table in a children's section, and he was asking, "What is that you're standing on?" And I could hear him ask one of the investigators next to him, does anybody know what that child's standing on? And you could hear the investigator respond, "Oh, that's a table with sand in it." Right in that area, you could hear like a girl's voice say, "Sandbox." It was not real clear because I was probably 10, 15 feet away from that table.
You can hear it with your ears?
But not with the ears, but on the recording.
Oh, okay.
On the recording, I could hear it.
And that type of camera you're talking about, that's where it will map out pinpoints, like a,
Yes.
like a star.
It's
or
believed that it will pick up the energies of a spirit or entity that is in the room within a certain proximity of the device.
It doesn't show you an image of them, though. It maps
It's like
out.
it's like
Right.
a stick figure,
Right.
but
Yes.
then you always got to watch too because there's like a lot of
There can be
if
false.
there's stuff that looks or could possibly have somewhat of a human shape. Sometimes not even that. They can put a false image in there, so you really
Right.
got to watch what's in the background. If it's something in the environment that's creating the stick figure, but
Such-
usually with that, it's usually fairly still for a while, or it might move a little bit, but it's going to be, you can kind of tell, okay, this kind of looks humanoid, or stuff like that a lot of times.
It takes some thought to what you're looking at. if you had it on one of those cameras on the tripods, chances are it's going to pixelate. A pillar for a basement foundation, any number of things like that. Now, during our investigation in the cemetery, I had picked up what looked to be a spirit sitting down on the ground, leaned back against the tombstone.
Same camera?
Yeah, that's the same type of camera, SLS camera. I could see the pixelation of the legs coming out, the arms, what appeared to be the head. Now, there was a flag by that tombstone, but you could clearly see the flag to the side. So what I did was I had walked side to side, seeing if that figure had changed or disappeared, and it remained in the same spot. I came back 2 times later, and it would not pixelate anything. So by reasoning out, if it came back, then chances are there was something in the environment, like he said, that was catching it to pixelate the figure. At that point, I would have to say there was a entity sitting there, because returning to that spot 2 times later and not picking up a figure then again after that, I know I wasn't getting a false positive from the flag or anything at that point.
Yeah. I like how you really look into your evidence. I want to read your mission statement so people know it. It's at KIPS, we will do our best to thoroughly and professionally investigate, obtain evidence, analyze evidence, and provide possible answers and or solutions to the evidence with a follow-up when evidence is found. You go on to say, we will professionally and discreetly investigate every avenue as to provide proof and answers using techniques and tools limited to our availability. And like your key word in there is evidence. And you put, I see that you put a lot of, you have to get used to how those tools work, like you said, so you can read them and then interpret them. And then you go back, if you get evidence, you go back and then show the people what you got.
Yes, we do our best. We've had 2 investigations at the Flats on the River, which was the Richardson Mill. We had, on the second investigation, gained access to the apartments, some of the residents' rooms, who actually let us in there. We had a medium with us at that time. She had picked up on somebody that had apparently wanted to be a superhero. And she was actually physically attacked, kicked. But when we were talking with the resident, she elected not to do anything about it because she didn't know if she really truly believed in something, another spirit being there doing things in her apartment. Even though she asked us to come in, she declined to do anything. But we did have the evidence on our camera, our SLS camera, showing this entity attacking the medium.
Yeah.
It's always up to the client. It's basically finding out whether this is something that's a danger to the household, to the family members, letting them know what we find, if we find anything, and going from there.
It brings me to this thought. What do you guys do for protection? You take any measures? You pray? You wear your crystals. I don't know if you consider that protection or more as an enhancing device.
Both, honestly. There are certain crystals, like my blue kyanite is always very good for investigating. It also helps enhance like the psychic abilities, but it's also good for protection, as well as like black tourmaline. But I also have my own kind of stuff that I do to get in my own mindset, do some energy clearing out, work on building my shield. Those are just regular things I have to do.
Some kind of grounding exercises?
Yeah.
What about the rest of the team? You guys, like I say, you guys do anything for protection, or just live your lives in a good way? You think that's...
I have a pocket full of rocks I take with me that I was given from somebody that's told me they were for my protection. I don't remember exactly. I know one of them was turquoise. I don't remember all the other ones. But she said she knows what they were. She said this is what you need to take with you.
Yeah, I think it's important, whatever you're putting your faith in. I wear my grandfather's wedding ring, as a matter of fact, and he's the guy that taught me how to be a ghost hunter all through my life.
My grandmother's pin. She's my spiritual grandmother that I take after. This was her pin, so I wear that.
Isn't that
well.
something? We kind of have that in common, yeah.
Yep.
Family is very important, friends. That's going to be part of when we get to our final thought that I want to talk about, but we're a little bit of ways away from that yet. Brandon, you're a paranormal investigator. I know you use a lot of different tools and devices. Any insights that you can offer? Or
I'd say for me, it's like you can have all the technology in the world. Sometimes it's going back to the basics and going very minimal is sometimes where you're going to get your best stuff. Because it's like, I think a lot of it gets in the way. Like sometimes it's really good and really useful. Sometimes it's better just to go minimal, like just a recorder and just sit there, with just that. Sometimes, it's like for mine, like I carry a camera. Like for me, when I set that camera down or that camera starts malfunctioning, when it's not working, like that's usually when I see something. That's usually when I experience it, is when I don't have the technology on me. So
I really prefer that approach, the silent. And we talked about this before the camera was turned on, about how it might be more of a somber event. And I relate it to a funeral. I go on to one of these things with the idea that I'm going to a funeral with the same kind of respect, no profanity. We talked about horseplay. You guys reserve that for in the parking lot afterwards, or maybe at meetings. I think that's a good way of going about it.
We would, like our statement says, we want to be professional when we're on site, when we're going through those facilities, whether it be a private residence or a public place. We want to do what we're there to be doing, and that's to investigate in a professional manner. We also want courtesy to those around us and to ourselves, because if we want to do a recording, we don't want members down in another room running around screaming.
Right. You don't want to contaminate each other's evidence.
No, exactly. And like you said, the equipment. We go in with all our equipment, but we don't necessarily keep using it through the whole site. We will stop. We will take several minutes in each room or wherever we think we might find something, and we just start asking questions and start recording it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the best ways to do it, is just kind of almost kind of like you switch stuff around through the night. You try different methods and different approaches. Like that's like what we do, is we usually do like kind of like an Estes method, do just EVP recordings. It's just because you don't know what's going to hit and what's easiest for them to communicate with you, what they would most prefer to communicate with you through. So
I also think too it has to do with having respect when you enter somewhere, having respect for spirit, because back to the intention thing, if you're coming in there and you're goofing off, that can just make someone mad. And so you might get a reaction, but it might not be a pleasant one that you're looking for. Instead of, you could have like a more positive experience.
Respect is a very big word, and that's a very important word when you're dealing with the dead. I mean, you don't want to make them mad, I guess. I mean, I don't know that you can. Maybe I think if you just respect them. I know, like, if you're in a cemetery and you do something to the tombstone. I was at a cemetery where some people threw the tombstones over the edge of the cliff, and my son and I were walking up that cliff. We thought we were being electrocuted all over our body at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was a long time before I could put that together, what that was all about. But I think they were giving us a message. Not that we did it. I mean, all we were doing was walking by there at the time. But I mean, I think that's how they took it. Like, you're a human living person, so I'm going to get you. you guys talked about cemeteries, and cemeteries. I know Brandon's been to some cemeteries where they had some activity. But another place that you've ever been to is a museum. You spent a night at a museum, and I like museums better than cemeteries personally. And the museum that you were at is in Belding, right across the street from the library where we did an investigation. I want you to talk about that because that's an incredible building, and you did send me a photo. I think that was taken with regular cameras, I believe.
That was taken with a DSLR. I had it in black and white. And I generally take 6 to 8 pictures in succession so that I can look for any kind of abnormalities. Of course, you probably picked up on that one
right away. The same photo. I knew it was the same photo.
Now, whether it was a trick of the camera, if I moved just wrong and it blurred it, I'm not 100% sure, but it was still very interesting what happened. The museum has so many different things brought into it, though, because the rooms are set up as a bar, a horse stable. One of the rooms was kept as what it was originally when they were a boarding house for the silk mills.
Yeah, Ken's talking about the Belding Museum.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of outside items into this. You also had an AA room in the basement, and there's so much energy that is being brought in with a lot of these items that you're getting interactions with children, women, men, and it was absolutely amazing.
This is the Bell
Rockton.
Yes.
And it's a giant, incredibly old building.
Yes, There's 3 floors plus the basement.
In the photo that you sent me, one was perfectly fine, and then the next one, the exact same shot, had streaks that went all the way down the picture. And I have a photo from someone that gave me that was taken at a cemetery where she was laying down on someone's grave, and she had a picture that's very similar, Ken. I should have brought it for you. That has those streaks that go right down, and on this one was
it was in Salem. It was one of the women that was executed for witchcraft. It was on her grave, and then she felt like the electrical feeling had it in the pictures.
And you want to talk about ingredients for a haunting.
Yeah. Asking for trouble. I'm not laying on a grave in Salem. I mean, I don't know. I like the paranormal. I get along with ghosts, but I'm not doing anything to upset them. I don't roll that way.
No, when we did our investigation in the cemetery, we were very respectful. We made sure we kept clear of the stones. We tried our best to not interfere with anything that, was natural to the environment, or we tried to leave a light footprint.
Right. Yeah, good point. Good way of saying it. I want to get to the final thought a little early because it seems like we're always running late on these programs, but I talked about it a little bit already. My grandfather, at 5 years old, was my mentor and coach because he was a legitimate ghost hunter before people even knew about ghost hunting. It seems like before Hollywood took over. But he actually dug up bones on 3 occasions and also found jars of money that were buried. But so he was my mentor. That's how I got my start. I want to go around the table here and talk about you guys. Who coached you, or who was your big advocate, or who's helped you along the way. Anybody can go, whoever wants. So, who you look up to, maybe even nowadays in the paranormal?
I'll go ahead and start. I'll admit I watched the TV shows. I got it spiked my interest, but I hadn't really witnessed anything in person until the spirit of the woman passing through my bedroom. And that's when it really hit a high. But watching the shows and experiencing that, I realized in my own mind that I had to come up with my own mechanics to do this, my own procedure, how I wanted to perform it, and I didn't want to do it in an aggressive way. I wanted to have a mannerism that is normal, that would be probably more attractive to a spirit to interact with somebody such as we are doing right now, sitting here talking to one another. I feel that they want to be treated with respect, to be acknowledged that, you know, they exist. So,
And that maybe they haven't been forgotten, too,
Yeah.
is what I include in there.
and sometimes I think that's why they do things in a house. They're oftentimes labeled a poltergeist, but they may be just wanting to get somebody's attention, saying, hey, I am here. Listen to this record.
Have you seen the
Or-
commercial with Casper, the friendly
Yes,
ghost?
yes, yes.
You just want some attention and some popcorn, I guess.
Yes. You never know. They may want to connect with the people that are living there, or they may need some help and don't know how to interact with the living. To me, living is not necessarily correct. Who's to say they are actually dead because they're a spirit?
Right. We don't die. I mean, our body gives out
body
on us
passes
eventually,
away.
but yeah,
So-
we don't die.
On this plane of existence versus theirs, they may just want us to know that they are there, or they need help. They're confused. There's so many different ingredients that can go into the haunting and what kind it is, such as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Residual. Somebody walks from the bedroom to the bathroom every morning. That person passes away. The next person moves in. They see somebody passing from the bedroom to the bathroom every morning. That would be a non-intelligent haunting versus somebody that's trying to get your attention, knocking papers off of a table.
Right. Look for patterns if you're trying to figure out the difference. So I guess you have been your own best advocate when it comes to the paranormal.
I try and read. I try and learn from other people, other groups, come up with different ideas. Again, make my own equipment because it's a whole lot cheaper. I've built my own SLS camera, REM pod, modified 2 point-and-shoot cameras.
You use a spirit box with a white noise?
I do not.
Oh,
Actually, one of my team members has one.
okay.
He's got the
You need to
S-Box
talk to
version.
Brandon about the Estes method. He brought it up. He just mentioned it real briefly, but it
Mhm.
makes that a little more legitimate when you put a blindfold on and you
I've
have
seen it performed.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Think about that one.
Mhm.
Now, how about who has been the big influence in you? I know your grandmother apparently was one.
Yeah, my grandmother, and myself. My mom has always encouraged me. I kind of blocked my abilities out when I was in school because I didn't want to be the weird kid. But then I just recently realized a lot of that too was when my grandfather passed away. And I didn't like always knowing things. And a lot of times I could tell when people are going to pass away, especially if they're close to me. And I didn't like that. So I blocked it out a lot. And then my health got really bad. Like, they thought I was going to need a liver transplant. And I was like, okay, things are not working right. And so I started doing self-healing, and then I started getting into Reiki and going to the holistic doctor. I came off of a bunch of medications and started listening to myself and really working on things. And I started taking classes and really working on things from there. And it's just kind of blossomed from there. And I've met people that have helped along the way. And
Yeah, what people? That's a question there.
well, I have my friend Denise. She kind of encouraged me. She's a holistic doctor now. She's a naturopath. And she was like, just keep doing it. And she kept calling me her psychic friend for years. And I was like, I didn't realize that everybody else realized this but me. I kind of blocked it out. And so once I started accepting it, as things started evolving. And then when I found out I was pregnant for my daughter, that was what I used, I guess, to really get me going, because I was like, okay, I really have to work on this stuff because I know she's going to have the same issues that I had. So I
Right.
need to know how I can help protect her and teach her what she's supposed to do to help herself.
I'm convinced it runs in the family.
Yeah.
You may have been close to that veil between the two worlds when your health got poor like that.
Yes, but I also have learned, it was a wake-up call for me. It was my body's way of telling me I needed to get things together. And I started taking shaman classes, which really helped as well. And they talk about, they call it like a calling. Basically it can either be like a near-death experience, such as like your health getting bad or a car accident or something, where it's like a awakening to your system to have these changes in your life.
I'm glad that friend was there for you, Tasha, when
Yes,
you
me too.
needed her. Now, Brandon, I probably should know your story because Brandon's he's been a paranormal investigator since 2011, me since 12, and we've known each other pretty much since 2012 and worked together.
Yeah.
But who was your big influence or pushed you or gave you that drive?
I don't know if I had like a big influence. I'd say Ryan Mason, who's been on some of our podcasts. He was in 2011. He had like a meetup group trying to form a team together, and like I had joined that team. So that's really what got me started in there. And I'd say from there, it's just kind of all the different team members I've worked with over the years, like other teams that I've been able to join with recently. I just try to kind of absorb kind of different things that they do, and then try to mentor other people that are kind of starting in it. Because like when I started, we were kind of going off what the TV shows did. We're starting from scratch. I didn't join an established team. So
yeah, the mentoring, Brandon and I kind of talked about that. At one time, I generated a whole page of do's and don'ts as far as how to do it right or what to avoid. And then I pass out a sheet for people that we go to so they don't think they're crazy. Hopefully when we're done, they're not still of that opinion that they might be crazy.
Yeah.
That's a goal.
Well, there's different levels of crazy.
Right? They might be a little bit crazy, right? I'll read the mission statement that I developed, and it's developed through the years. Through 7 years, it's changed a lot. These information sheets have changed a lot, but this is what I came up with. Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters is faith-based and dedicated to assisting people oppressed by disturbing paranormal forces. Members are passionate in common pursuit to bring peace to the living and dearly departed. If you know you have a paranormal problem and you want it out, now, trust us to help. We offer smudging and blessing of people and places free of charge, and we guarantee confidentiality in writing. This was not my first draft. This was after 7 years. So yours may change
I'm sure it will.
as time goes. You may find more things that are important that you want to include in that mission statement. But it seems like you have a clear vision of where you want your team to go.
Yes, I don't like yours. We don't want to charge people for it. I think this is more of a necessity for a lot of people, a need. It's just the same as being caught, but by an unseen force, you're trapped. Somehow this is a service that we can hopefully provide to these people to clear that house or building, wherever this is going on, to help those people have a peace of mind.
Yeah, I think like I say, I think you have a clear idea of where you want to go and what you want to do when you get there. If not, Brandon's available to help. I'm available to help. Grasp, count on Darren Dykehouse. If you need him, I know he offered.
yeah, it's Lakeshore Paranormal.
Yes.
We're kind of based out of Muskegon.
Yeah, Ken actually knows. They've worked together a little bit.
I'm not against working with other teams at all. I think that is something we should all be open to, because the fact that we're all trying to get the same thing done. We're trying to help people. Our goals, our objectives, to find the evidence, see if we can come to the same conclusions as a team and with the resident, and figure out a path of clearing this.
So often.
On that, I actually want to use that as a segue for my closing statement, if that's okay, because it kind of leads right into it. On my next podcast with Kent County Paranormal, If you join our Facebook page, we're going to try to go live. Unfortunately, it didn't work last week. But we're going to have Bill Jones from Grasp on. We're actually going to be discussing forming, because one of the things we want to do is to get a bunch of the local teams together and actually form a committee where we can work together and stuff like that. So he will be on next week, Wednesday at 7. Again, that's facebook.com/Kent County Paranormal. And if it's not there, you can find it with on the same podcast page on the Whole Picture podcast as well.
It's something you brought up. You said help, and we're out of time, but something you said, it was the help part. And so often we hear that. Brandon, how many times have you heard help on an EVP?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, I mean, he can't even tell you how
Between
many
that
times.
and Get Out, and I've heard that audibly.
Yeah. But help. I mean, help is a reoccurring thing, and that's what we hope to do here. Now, to you guys and to everybody out there, I say expect miracles, and I hope that your expectations come true. So that's it, everybody. Good show. Real good show.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Peace out.